Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our March 2023 Your Overseas Home virtual event. Thank you for joining us this morning and for tuning into our seminar on tax and financial planning when you move to Cyprus. My name is Richard Way. I'm an international property journalist and I'm a writer on the Property Guides team, and I'll be hosting this session. Today we'll be hearing from and chatting to Gillian Richards, who herself is an expat who lives in Cyprus, and she works for the financial advisory and wealth management specialist Chase Buchanan. Gillian's going to be talking about taxation and financial considerations when you make the move to Cyprus, and we might talk a bit about visas as well. So it's great to have lots of you with us today, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on demand, if you've downloaded this from the website. This event is designed to support people like you who's looking to move to Cyprus or anywhere else in the world. And the idea is that we give you the opportunity to answer questions you might have about all the different aspects of that. So once Gillian has done her presentation, we're going to give you the opportunity to ask her questions. If you don't get your question answered during this session, Gillian will be available on the booth, the Chase Buchanan booth, back in the main exhibition hall of the event. When you do have a question, use the Q&A tool on your dashboard, please, and then I'll pick them up and I'll feed them to Gillian. So yeah, don't be shy. I'm sure what you're thinking of, someone else's. We can all learn from each other's questions, and having an expert in the field of financial advice here today to offer you advice, and it's free, so let's all make use of that. So Gillian, how are you doing? You're in Cyprus, aren't you?
I am in Cyprus and I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah.
You got sunshine out there. What's the time there? It's about 3 or 4 hours ahead, aren't you?
No, two hours ahead of the UK. Yeah. It's a bit overcast today, but it's still very warm.
Lovely.
Nice temperature.
Great. So just to kick off, just tell us about your base in Cyprus, about your personal experience of being there, how long you've been there, where you live, and that sort of thing, what life is like, and then let's go straight into the presentation. So welcome, Gillian Richards.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I've lived in Cyprus for coming up to 3 years now. Our our office is in Paphos, and we're right in the middle. It's really easy to find us. Parking is perfect there. As I said, I've lived in Cyprus for coming up to 3 years, but I was living in Bermuda for 10 years before. So I know what it's like being an expat. I know what it's like moving around from country to country, the different cultures, different languages, and obviously different requirements for working and living in those countries. Chase Buchanan, it has got lots of different offices around Europe, in the US as well, and Canada. So we're perfectly positioned for people that are looking to move. So if I go into the presentation, moving to Cyprus, which is a really lovely place to live, almost 360 days of the year we have sunshine. What is there not to like? I've been in financial services for over 30 years, and I'm stopping at 30 years now because I'm getting older, and then it looks like I am as well. And I have been in the offshore industry for just over 13 years, and it's really different from being an advisor in the UK. For myself, I am very much involved in charities, and the third sector. I have been for a number of years, and I am involved in various board roles for the different charities. So that's just a little bit about myself. So why would you buy a property in Cyprus? Well, firstly, moving to Cyprus, it is really, cost of living is still quite low. Even our electricity bills are a lot less than they are in the UK. The lifestyle is, it's completely different to the UK. You're not rushing around. It is a bit more laid back. And I said, you know, you do have that lovely weather for most of the year. And, you know, going around, going to the tavernas, you know, they've got lots of local wines. The culture is completely different. You move out from the big resort areas and the cities and go into some of the mountain villages, and it's a completely different way of life. And I said, it is much slower pace. There are lots of expats around in various areas of Cyprus. So if Paphos is not the area for you, but you prefer to be over on the east side, over by Ionapa, Paralimni, there are still lots of expat areas there. So you will never feel like you are living in Cyprus and you are the only expat. You will meet people in lots of different ways. There's lots of third age communities and associations, and there is an awful lot of things to do. You can still get permanent residency through real estate, although it is much more difficult now. And unsurprisingly, Cyprus is one of the top destinations for retirement. And just touching on the tax on this slide, immovable property is homes, offices, that sort of thing. And the tax on that is really low. So if we move on to Cyprus stamp duty, if you're buying a residential property, you can see value of the property up to 5,000, you don't pay anything. And then it goes on a sliding scale above. And once it goes up anything over 170,000, then it's 0.20%. So as I say, it's on a sliding scale, and all the lawyers will tell you all of this up front, how much your costs are going to be to buy a property. Buying new property, this is really for the real estate for permits for permanent residency. There, when you buy the property, there is a 19% VAT charge. That will be reduced to 5% if you meet certain criteria. And that is that the property is your primary and your main residence for 10 years. That you also haven't bought another property on the reduced VAT rate. Obviously, you have to be over 18 years of age. And then it also depends on the size of your property. So the 5% VAT is payable on the first 200 square meters of the property. And if it's a larger property, you will then pay 19% on the rest. So again, that is just something to be aware of. Property prices for this usually start at the moment, it's 300,000 euros. That is likely to increase. To what? That has not been decided, but there is a lot of talk through the Cyprus government that if they're going to continue with this permanent residency through real estate, that 300,000 figure will increase. Some of the costs for when you do own your property, these are the annual costs. Each area has its own local authority and municipality. And so for lots of the fees for the local authorities, it really depends on the size of the property, the area that you're living in, the refuse collection, street lighting and sewerage, because not all the properties are on main sewerage. So those fees will depend, but it usually starts off around between about 85 euros up to about 500 euros, and that is per annum. The municipality tax is anywhere between 0.1% and 0.2%. And this is the really good thing, is that it's based on the value of the property from the 1st of January in 2013. So as you can imagine, the properties back in 2013 are a lot lower than the property values now. But the municipality tax is based on that value on the 1st of January 2013. Sewerage tax, if you are on main sewerage, then again, it's very low. It's 0.05% up to 0.3%. And again, that is based on the property value as the 1st of January 2013. Okay, then we move on to personal income tax. If you're classed as a tax resident in Cyprus if you spend 183 days in any year in Cyprus. Okay, but you can also be considered tax resident in Cyprus if you have been living there for 90 days, but you have not been resident in another country for 183 days. Now, a lot of people get caught out on this because they'll come to Cyprus, they'll be here for 60 days and they'll travel. So they may go, to Spain for like a month, and then they may go on a cruise where they're away for 3 months, or they'll go back to the UK and they're there for a month. So you will fall into the Cyprus tax bracket if you are here for 60 days, if you haven't lived anywhere else and been tax resident for 183 days. So it's a little bit confusing, but it's just to make you aware of that rule. Okay. Yeah, and that basically just, just says, the slide just really confirms what I've just said. Okay, in Cyprus, personal tax rates, very, very favourable. Earnings up to 19,500 euros, you don't pay tax. You still have to do a tax return, but there wouldn't be any tax to pay. Over 19,501, again, sliding scale to 28,000, it's 20%, and then onwards over to 60,000 plus, then it goes up to 35%. Now, a lot of people, particularly if you're coming from the UK, will have UK pensions, UK state pension. If you have foreign pension income, which would be from the UK, then it is a flat rate of 5% that you are charged, and that is up to amounts on 3,420 euros. Now, you don't have to stick to the 5%, although the 5% sounds, oh, it's really low. In reality, it could be, you need to do the calculation, because in reality, if you're on the 19,500, for example, you wouldn't pay tax. So you do need to sit down, and we're more than happy in our office to sit with you and just do that calculation for you, because you do have that option. Capital gains, there are very few things that you would pay capital gains on, and basically it's your property, selling your property. There are, excuse me, it's 20% gains on the sale of the property, with the 17,086 euros exemption for each person. There is an allowance for inflation and obviously fees that you've paid at the beginning, but there is also an exemption of 85,430 if you have continuously resided and lived in your property for 5 years prior to the sale. So again, it's really about buying a property for you to live in, then you can get those benefits if you live there for 5 years plus, rather than buying a property that you rent out, that you may stay a couple of weeks of the year and then you rent out. You will pay capital gains on holiday rentals, on holiday rental sales, I should say. There is a general health system in Cyprus, which is very similar to the NHS. And I've just put this slide here just so it helps. You will not automatically be enrolled onto the health system. You do need to pay social insurance. So if you are employed, you would be paying social insurance. If you are over the UK state pension age, and you are therefore claiming the UK state pension, you can apply for what's called an S1, and that will give you access to the ESI, to the Cyprus General Health System. Okay. Checklist. This is very important now, and this is all because of Brexit. you need to speak to a regulated financial advisor before you make the change and the move to Cyprus. Okay, and that IFA from the UK will not be able to look after you once you go to Cyprus. And that's actually where we come in, because we have a lot of clients that do move around. So we do know all of the restrictions and structuring savings, investments and your pensions. So it's very much get your everything in order before you leave Cyprus. And then as soon as you come to Cyprus, then we can meet with you and we can go through, make sure that you meet the criteria and all the regulations for Cyprus. Also, just a little point here is that really, if you do have a property in the UK that you intend to sell, you really need to have that transaction completed before you become a Cyprus resident. And just a touch, which I didn't mention on the last slide, that with the taxation, the tax year for Cyprus is the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So if you are moving to Cyprus, it's worth thinking about that and knowing that, because if you come, say from August onwards, that year you're not in Cyprus as a tax resident for 163 days of the year. But just watch that 60-day rule, because you may be a Cyprus tax resident without actually realising it. Wills, Cyprus does have a forced heirship system, and that is the same throughout the majority, well, through the EU. So it is vitally important that if you do have a will in Cyprus, which you should do, that you need to have a will also in the UK, and just say in your Cyprus will that you want your estate distributed under the laws of your country of birth. All right, so again, very important clause. Most of the lawyers, when you are buying a property through them, they will actually offer to do the will for you. It's a free service once you complete on the property. I've put this slide in because there have been some changes to the residency application for anyone who is a third country national, and this all came in from the 1st of January. Now, because of Brexit, the UK is now classed as, anyone from the UK is classed as a third country national. So there are additional requirements. So the first, and I've only put a few of them here, the first one to be aware of is the annual income. That has now increased to 24,000 euros. That is per annum, and that is for the main person in the family. It then adds on for every dependent that you are bringing over. So it's for the first, so the first person is 24,000 euros. If you are bringing your spouse over, you need to increase that by 20%. And then if you're bringing children over, you need to add that another 15% on top for each child. You don't need to have that money sitting in the bank account to start off with. It is only for the 4 renewals that they don't ask that, but you do need to show that you do have the money for the first 6 months or 3 to 6 months there ready to go. You also need a criminal record certificate from your country of origin or residence. If it's not in English, then it will be needed to be translated into Greek or English when you arrive. Again, this is just for the first permit. You don't need that for renewals. Also now you need medical examinations, you need blood tests to show that you do not suffer from hepatitis B or C, HIV or syphilis, and this is for everybody from a third country national. Also, you need a chest X-ray to show that you're clear from tuberculosis. At the very beginning, I mentioned that I've lived overseas for a number of years, and when I very first went to Bermuda, I had to have a chest X-ray as well. So these rules that have been brought in are not uncommon. They have been around for a while. The Cyprus brought them in for fortunately the UK. And that's basically it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Gillian. We do have a question, and it's from John, and he says he's 60 and he's hoping to retire to Cyprus in about 6 months. He's selling his house before he goes to Cyprus. So is there anything, or what should he be doing now at this time? 6 months, he's moving in 6 months. He wants to sell his house before he moves. We might already have a buyer, I don't know. What things should he be doing now? What should he be thinking about?
Okay, so he needs to think about the pensions that he has. He needs to get up-to-date pension statements. He needs to have statements for any investments that he's got, and he needs to have all of that ready. If he has that, and then on one side, if he knows where he's going to be living when he comes to Cyprus, either whether it's a rental property or if he's buying a property, then obviously he needs to start that as well. Anything that once he's got those statements, he's more than welcome to send them over. We can go through with him. We can let him know what his options are moving out. And it's just making sure that he has that money in the bank account to prove that he can afford to live with the 24,000 euros when he moves to Cyprus. That really, is the big.
He should be talking to Chase Buchanan or now, really. 6 months can goes quite fast, doesn't it? So
very quickly.
And in terms of applying for the visa, is that something he needs to look at, start the process now, or
he needs, when he gets there? Yeah, you can't start you can't actually start getting the appointment till you're actually living in Cyprus. So that's one thing, but you can start getting the paperwork together. If John's married, he needs to get his marriage certificate of apostles. So it needs to go, he needs to contact the Foreign Office. Again, that was a rule that was in, they then stopped it, but they've now reintroduced it. So getting the paperwork together will help. And then when he comes here, it's straightforward. You can make the booking once you've been here. The appointment will be for when you've been here 90 days, and then you can go and have your meeting with immigration.
Okay, thank you. And then he asks, should he open a bank account now in Cyprus? When would most people do that?
Okay, so it varies. It really depends on the bank. But if he's, I'm guessing John's been to Cyprus before. So he will know the different banks. If he's got, he will need obviously passport. He will need, though, with the bank, the police criminal record certificate. So he may be a little bit far out from doing that. But if he's coming to Cyprus, maybe to do a bit of a reconnaissance or just to sign things up, not far from when he's coming to permanently move, then he can set it up. But he will need some documents. He will need a rental agreement or to prove that he is living somewhere to open the bank account. But if he's coming from the UK, he will need that criminal record to open the bank account.
Okay, thanks very much. And just going back to the required annual income for the visa, we've got a question about that from Rafaela. He's asking, do you need to show annual income of 24,000 euros coming from abroad, or can you just transfer 24,000 euros to Cyprus as a lump sum, and they won't even look, and it's irrelevant what you earn abroad? I mean, how flexible can you meet this requirement?
Okay, so firstly, if Raphael has an EU passport, he doesn't need to meet any of those requirements. If he can transfer 24,000 into the bank account, and then that will show, but he will need to follow it up with paperwork to show that if he's overseas and he's employed by a company overseas, you know, just a letter from the employer or bank slip or pay slips just to prove that he is actually earning that amount of money. They will need it just to back it up. The bank statement's fine, but they will look for the backup proof.
But you still need proof that you're earning at that level, regardless of having that lump sum amount. Okay, thanks very much.
They'll just ask for backup.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, someone here says they've got dual nationality, English and Maltese. Does that make it easier to do things in Cyprus? I'm guessing it does, because you're an EU citizen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So nice, easy answer to that. Thank you. Another one here from Stephen. We are in the process of purchasing a property in Cyprus with plans to live there. And we started the temporary residency process. Do we have to transfer 24,000 euros every year from pension provision?
They will ask to see it in the bank. They will ask to see some money in the bank. For the first year, you need to prove the 24,000. After that, they'll want to see at least 6,000 in your bank account when you go to renew.
Okay. This, just to be clear, this residency process we're talking about with the 24,000 requirement, this is not the one that you would be, the route you'd be going down if you're buying a new property. Is that right? This is this
is for the temporary residence permit. So this is for a 1-year permit, and then it gets renewed annually. And then once you get to 5 years, you can then apply for permanent residency. Yeah, this is completely different to the permanent residency through real estate.
Yeah, and would you say this is the most popular way of getting residency? Is this what most?
Yeah, most people would do this purely because of a lot of the time it's to do with the 19% on the properties. A lot of people don't want to buy a new property. Yeah, and it does go that way. There's also issues around the permanent residency because Cyprus there were some issues previously, I should say. So they're not 100% sure that they're going to carry on with this. If you speak to some of the lawyers will do it, some of the lawyers will not. But it's not a quick way to get residency. So the majority of people do go through the temporary residency route, and it is a lot easier.
Especially when you've got someone like Gillian who's helping you do that. The other thing I was going to ask, in terms of taxation on your pensions, so if you have a UK state pension, you move to Cyprus, that will be paid gross to Cyprus. So, or how does it work with tax? It's not taxed at source, it'll be taxed in Cyprus, is that right?
So again, you know, we'll help you through. Everybody's tax situation's different. And what we will do, if it's straightforward and you've just got your pension, state pension, occupational pension in the UK, then we get it moved over to Cyprus. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it paid directly into a Cyprus bank account. You can have it paid into your UK account if your bank will allow you to keep your account open. And then, you know, you can use someone like Smart Currency who can then change it over, because obviously you're going to get a better rate with them rather than going through the banks. But on the tax side of it, you apply for a Cyprus tax code. And then you can, once you've got that, you then do a tax form to HMRC asking them to give you an NT no tax code. And that way then you won't pay tax in the UK, you'll pay tax in Cyprus. And that's because Cyprus and the UK have a double taxation agreement. So you're not going to pay tax twice on the same income.
Brilliant.
But
great, just nice. Lovely. Thank you very much, Gillian. I've just noticed the time we are out for this session. I mean, we could carry on talking for much longer, I know. But hopefully this has given everyone an insight into the sort of information that you need and how people like Gillian can help you, Chase Buchanan. So thank you very much, Gillian, for giving up your time. Do get in touch with Gillian and the Chase Buchanan team. They're on their booth in the main hall of the virtual event. They're waiting for you to go and speak to them. Sure, you've got more questions. We've got another session on Cyprus coming up after this at 9 o'clock, and we're going to be talking to currency specialist, property agent, property consultant, and a lawyer, and explaining how they can help you and why they're so important to the buying process in Cyprus. Also, don't forget this session has been recorded, so it will be available to watch again from the Your Overseas Home website. You can forward it on to friends and family, share the information. We're lucky that Gillian's given up her time to do this, so thank you very much. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day out in Cyprus. I hope the sun comes out. I'm sure it will.
Oh, it is. It's coming out now.
Get out there and enjoy it.
All right. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Enjoy the rest of the event, everyone. Thank you very much.